All right, so today we're going to be doing a deep dive on something that might sound kind of boring at first, but I promise you it's really not.
Right.
It's pulse oximetry. Have you heard of this before?
Pulse oximetry.
Yeah. So it's that little thing they clip on your finger at the doctor's office.
Right.
And it's measuring something in your blood that's super important. But a lot of people don't even know, like, what it's measuring or why it's important.
Yeah, it's funny. We kind of take our breathing for granted.
Totally.
But every breath we take actually sets off this whole chain reaction.
Oh, yeah.
And the pulse oximeter is kind of like this window into that.
It is. So today we're going to decode those little numbers that flash on the pulse oximeter.
Yeah.
What do they actually mean? How accurate are they, and why should you care?
By the end of this deep dive, you'll be pulse oximetry literate.
I love it. Okay, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is a pulse oximeter measuring?
So it's primarily measuring your oxygen saturation.
Okay.
And that's represented as SpO₂.
SpO₂.
Got it. Yeah, and that percentage that you see,
Yeah.
that tells you how much of your red blood cells are actually carrying oxygen.
So if my SpO₂ is 98%, that means 98% of my red blood cells are just packed with oxygen.
Exactly. Think of your red blood cells like these little delivery trucks.
Okay.
Carrying oxygen all throughout your body.
Yeah.
That SpO₂ reading is telling you how full those trucks are.
That is a great analogy. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about SpO₂. What about the other numbers that you see on a pulse oximeter?
So you'll also see your pulse rate.
Right.
Which is just how fast your heart's beating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the fancier pulse oximeters, they might even give you something called the perfusion index.
Perfusion index. Okay, that sounds a little more complicated.
Yeah, it's basically a measure of how strong your blood flow is at your fingertip.
Got it.
So it can tell us how well your blood is circulating in those outer areas of your body.
Okay, that makes sense. So now I'm kind of curious about how this technology works. How does this little device actually see inside our blood and figure all this stuff out?
It all comes down to light.
Really?
Yeah, so pulse oximeters actually shine two different colors of light red and infrared through your fingertip. And the thing is, oxygenated blood absorbs those colors differently.
So it's like shining a flashlight through my finger, and the color changes based on how much oxygen is in my blood.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so the pulse oximeter, it detects those really subtle changes in the light absorption.
Yeah.
And it uses that information to calculate your SpO₂.
That's pretty clever.
Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah. But can we always trust those numbers?
That's a good question.
I've heard that they're not always accurate.
You've heard right. No medical device is perfect.
Right.
And pulse oximeters, they do have a margin of error.
So what are some things that could throw off the readings?
Well, like nail polish, especially if it's a dark color.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it can definitely interfere with the light. But even beyond that, simple things like how you're holding your hand or if you're moving around a lot can affect the accuracy.
So if I'm using one at home,
yeah,
I should try to keep my hands still.
Exactly. It's also important to make sure that sensor is placed correctly. And things like having cold fingers or poor circulation can impact the readings too.
Oh, so there's a lot of different factors that play.
There are a lot of factors, but even with those limitations, pulse oximetry, it's still an incredibly valuable tool.
Yeah.
It's used all the time in healthcare for all sorts of reasons, not just for checking oxygen levels.
Oh, really? I always thought it was just for people with breathing problems.
It's definitely used a lot for that.
Yeah.
So it helps doctors track oxygen levels in people with things like asthma, COPD, or pneumonia, and it helps them see how well treatments are working.
Makes sense.
But it's also used during surgery.
Okay.
Especially when someone's under anesthesia, and even in neonatal care to monitor newborns.
Wow. I had no idea it was used so widely.
Yeah. Are there other surprising ways that pulse oximetry is used?
Well, it's actually used to monitor sleep apnea.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But how can a pulse oximeter help with that?
So it can actually detect those dips in oxygen levels that happen when someone stops breathing during sleep.
Oh.
And this can help doctors diagnose sleep apnea and assess how severe it is.
So it's like a silent alarm system.
Yeah.
Letting doctors know if someone's oxygen levels are dropping during sleep.
That's a great way to put it, and here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Since pulse oximetry can be used to track sleep apnea, it might make you think about your own sleep quality.
Huh. I've never really thought about it much.
Yeah, it's one of those things we often take for granted until we start having problems.
Totally.
But good sleep is just so crucial for both our physical and mental health.
It is so how can we tell if our sleep quality is good or not?
Yeah.
Is it just about how many hours we're getting?
It's definitely more than just the quantity of sleep.
It's also about the quality.
Yeah.
And that's where things like, at-home sleep studies and wearable devices come in.
Sure.
They can provide insights into your sleep patterns and can really help identify any potential issues.
That's really interesting. I'm going to have to look into that.
I encourage you to, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about what pulse oximetry can tell us, but I'm also curious about what it can't tell us.
Yeah, there are definitely some things. It doesn't measure carbon dioxide levels, for one.
Okay, so that's important. Why?
That's important because even if you have enough oxygen in your blood, you could still have problems if you're not breathing out enough carbon dioxide.
So someone could have a normal SpO₂ reading, but still be having issues with their breathing.
Exactly. And pulse oximetry alone wouldn't necessarily pick that up.
So you really need other tools to fully assess breathing.
To assess carbon dioxide levels and how well someone is ventilating,
Right.
doctors need to use other tools.
Interesting. Okay, so what else?
So it also doesn't give you information about your acid-base status.
Okay.
Our blood needs to maintain this very delicate balance of acidity and alkalinity.
Yeah.
And any imbalances can signal some serious underlying conditions.
Oh, wow. So we wouldn't use a pulse oximeter to diagnose something like acidosis or alkalosis?
That's right. Those conditions require more specific blood tests.
Got it.
Also, while a pulse oximeter does tell us the percentage of hemoglobin that's carrying oxygen, it doesn't actually measure how much hemoglobin you have overall.
Okay, remind me, what is hemoglobin again?
So hemoglobin is that protein inside red blood cells that binds to and carries oxygen.
Right.
So you could have a normal SpO₂ reading, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have enough hemoglobin.
Okay.
Someone could have a normal SpO₂ but still be anemic.
Right.
Which means they don't have enough red blood cells.
So it's like you're only getting one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
You need more information to get the whole picture.
You need more pieces to put it all together.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's really important to interpret those pulse oximetry readings in the context of your overall health.
Absolutely. It's one data point among many.
Right. It's not the be-all and end-all.
It's not the whole story.
So it sounds like even though pulse oximetry is really helpful, it's important to know that it does have its limitations.
It definitely does.
Okay, so now I'm kind of curious, how do certain diseases affect how we interpret those readings?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what we're going to dig into next.
Awesome. I'm excited to learn more.
All right, let's do it. Yeah. So it's really interesting to think about how different diseases can affect these pulse oximetry readings.
Yeah, this is what I was really curious about. So how do things like heart problems or lung diseases change how we interpret those numbers?
So let's take someone with COPD, for example.
Okay.
Their lungs aren't working as well as they should.
Right.
So their baseline oxygen saturation might naturally be a little bit lower than someone without COPD.
So what might be a cause for concern in one person
Exactly.
could be totally normal for someone else.
Exactly. It's all about understanding what's typical for that individual.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
If you're using a pulse oximeter at home, they can help you make sense of those readings based on your specific health history.
It sounds like communication is really key here.
Communication is key, absolutely.
Between patients and doctors.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to those limitations we talked about earlier.
Okay.
We mentioned that pulse oximetry can't measure carbon dioxide levels.
Right.
And that's really important for understanding, how well someone is breathing.
Exactly, because you could have plenty oxygen in your blood.
Right.
But if you're not getting rid of carbon dioxide effectively, that's also a problem.
Totally. So pulse oximetry shouldn't be the only tool used to, diagnose or monitor breathing issues.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Especially in conditions like COPD or sleep apnea.
Exactly.
It seems like pulse oximetry is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to assessing respiratory health.
It is one piece, and you need those other pieces to really get the full picture.
Okay, so what about acid-base balance?
Yeah, so pulse oximetry can't tell us if someone's blood is too acidic or alkaline.
Okay.
Which can be a sign of some pretty serious underlying problems.
Wow. Our bodies are so complex.
They are very complex.
There's just so much happening that a simple oxygen reading can't reveal.
Yeah, and even that seemingly simple oxygen reading can be a little misleading in certain situations.
Okay. How?
So remember how we talked about those different types of hemoglobin?
Uh-huh.
Well, if those abnormal variants are present,
Okay.
that can actually mess with the pulse oximeter's calculations.
Oh, right, because it's specifically designed to detect, like, the normal hemoglobin.
Exactly. And that's why those newer multi-wavelength Go oximeters are so cool.
Yeah, what do those do?
They use multiple colors of light
Oh.
to differentiate between those different types of hemoglobin.
Okay.
And they give us a much clearer picture of what's going on.
It's like having a high-powered microscope for your blood.
I love that analogy.
Okay, so speaking of cool technology, have you heard of signal extraction technology?
Oh, yeah. SET.
SET, yeah, that one rings a bell. I think it helps improve accuracy, right?
Exactly. It basically filters out all the noise in the readings.
Okay.
So, for example, like if someone's moving around a lot,
Yeah.
or if they have poor circulation,
Mm-hmm.
it can help to clean up that signal.
So it's like having noise-canceling headphones for your pulse oximeter.
That's a good way to put it.
What other advancements are we seeing in this field?
So wireless connectivity is becoming really popular now,
Okay.
which allows for remote monitoring,
Oh, wow.
which is huge for telemedicine and for intensive care units.
Yeah.
So doctors can actually track their patients' oxygen levels in real time, even from a distance.
That's incredible. It's amazing to see how technology is like changing the way we deliver healthcare.
It really is.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning.
I know, I was going to say, like, where do we go from here?
Right.
What's next?
So imagine a future where your pulse oximeter combined with artificial intelligence
Okay.
could not only tell you your oxygen level,
Mm-hmm.
but also analyze trends over time,
Okay.
predict potential issues,
Wow.
and even suggest personalized recommendations.
It's like having a personal health advisor right on your fingertip.
Right there on your finger.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about advancements,
Yeah.
let's not forget about the basics.
Right.
So for our listeners out there, what are some key things they should keep in mind when it comes to using pulse oximetry wisely?
The most important thing is to remember that it's a tool, not a diagnosis.
Okay.
It's giving you data,
Yeah.
but it's really up to your doctor to interpret those readings
Right.
in the context of your overall health.
So don't just panic if you see a weird number.
Right.
Talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
Get their professional opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And be aware of the things that can affect accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using one at home,
Right.
make sure you're following the instructions carefully,
Okay.
holding your hand, still placing the sensor correctly,
Yeah.
and let your doctor know if you have any health conditions that might influence your readings.
It sounds like there's a lot more to pulse oximetry than I initially realized.
There is.
It's pretty fascinating.
It's a fascinating tool.
Yeah, and I think we're just scratching the surface of its potential.
Oh, yeah. I think there's so much more to learn and discover.
It makes me wonder about like the role of pulse oximetry in like screening for potential health issues.
Hmm.
Do you think it could be used to like catch problems early on?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I think on the one hand, wider access to pulse oximetry
Yeah.
could empower people to monitor their health more closely
Mm-hmm.
and potentially detect things sooner.
Especially for people with chronic conditions like
Yeah.
COPD or heart problems.
Yeah, they could keep a closer eye on their oxygen levels and alert their doctor
Hardly.
to any concerning changes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
we have to be mindful of the potential for over-monitoring and unnecessary anxiety.
That's a good point.
You know, people might start obsessing over every little fluctuation in their readings.
So it's all about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Using the technology responsibly and
Right.
not letting it rule our lives.
It's about using it to inform and empower, not to alarm.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, and so, if you are considering using a pulse oximeter at home,
Mm-hmm.
definitely talk to your doctor about whether it's appropriate for you
Okay.
and how to interpret those results correctly.
It's all about making informed decisions together as a team.
Exactly. The more we understand about our bodies and the tools that are available to us,
Yeah.
the better we can navigate our health journey.
I love that so much knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. It really is amazing when you think about it. Like this tiny little device
know.
uses light to like tell us so much about our health.
Right.
It's pretty incredible and it's only getting more advanced.
I know the future of pulse oximetry is looking bright.
Okay, I gotta ask, like, what kind of cool stuff are researchers working on?
Well,
What's on the horizon for this technology?
one exciting area is the integration of artificial intelligence.
Okay, AI.
Yeah. So imagine your pulse oximeter paired with AI,
Mm-hmm.
not only measuring your oxygen levels,
Okay.
but also like analyzing those readings over time,
Mm-hmm.
detecting subtle patterns,
Yeah.
and maybe even predicting potential problems before they become serious.
Whoa, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal health detective right on your fingertip.
Constantly working for you in the background, constantly looking for clues.
Keeping an eye on things.
Yeah, so AI could like really help personalize healthcare in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Oh, absolutely. It could tailor advice based on your individual readings, your health history, like suggesting lifestyle changes, medication adjustments, or even alerting your doctor if something seems off.
Exactly.
That's incredible. It sounds like science fiction, but it's probably not that far off.
It's closer than you think.
Wow. And then what about the potential impact on public health?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
So widespread use of pulse oximetry combined with AI and big data analysis could help us track the spread of respiratory illnesses like in real time.
That's a really fascinating idea. It's like having a global early warning system.
Exactly.
For outbreaks.
For outbreaks of respiratory infections.
We could identify hotspots.
Yeah.
Track how effective our interventions are, maybe even predict future outbreaks.
And it all started with this simple idea of using light to measure oxygen in our blood.
Yeah, and look where it's led us.
It really is incredible.
But as this technology becomes, even more widespread, I think it's crucial to remember that it needs to like work for everyone.
Absolutely.
We've talked about how things like skin pigmentation can affect the accuracy.
It can.
And we really need to make sure that those issues are addressed.
Yeah, we need to make sure that everyone benefits from these advancements.
So as pulse oximetry becomes more integrated into our lives, we need to make sure that it's inclusive and equitable.
Right. We need to design and test these technologies with diverse populations in mind so that the readings are accurate and reliable for everyone.
It's a reminder that progress isn't just about pushing the boundaries of technology.
It's about making sure that those benefits reach everyone.
Okay, well, I think this has been a really fascinating deep dive
Yeah.
into the world of pulse oximetry. I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners have too.
I hope so.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay.
We've learned a lot about how this technology can help us understand and monitor our physical health, but it also made me think about something bigger.
Okay, what's that?
The importance of just listening to our bodies in general.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah, in a world full of distractions.
Right.
It's easy to lose touch with what our bodies are trying to tell us.
Absolutely.
So beyond the numbers on a screen, are we paying attention to how we feel, our energy levels, our breathing, the quality of our sleep?
Those are all important signals.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So while pulse oximetry can give us a snapshot of our oxygen levels, it's important to remember that it's just one piece of the puzzle.
It's just one data point.
True well-being comes from tuning in to our bodies.
Absolutely.
Paying attention to those subtle cues.
Yes.
And honoring what we need.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close.
Okay.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of pulse oximetry with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your health. Stay curious, stay informed, and above all, listen to your body.
Yes.